Hello, my name is Chris and today we're going to talk about setting up your custom shooting modes for the Canon EOS R system. You could also name them your C1, C2 or C3 modes. If you're using an R6 you can find them on the dial, and if you're using an R5 you can find them under the mode button. Keep in mind, when you're using an RP or an R6 you can only do this for photography modes and not for video modes. When you own an R5 you can also do this for your video settings. Because I own an R6, I will perform the steps on this camera. If you own a different R system, you could follow along. The settings are the same, but you can find them, as I told before, under the mode button. So why should you use the custom shooting modes? Who are they for? They are for photographers who shoot a lot in different kind of circumstances. Especially with the coming of the new focus system with eye tracking of people and animal. The custom modes are ideal to assign these different functions to. Because when you are using these kind of modes with eye detection for animal or people, you have to dive into the menu to see on which one you are on. And with these functions you can assign them to them and you can jump from one to another very easily. Another scenario is the difference between using different kind of focus buttons. You can use the back button out of focus, or you can use the shutter button out of focus. The back button out of focus is used a lot in wildlife photography. Or let's say you are a photographer who shoots studio portraits, and the next day you are doing some time-lapse photography, and the next day you are doing some wildlife photography. Then it's really easy to switch between these modes without having to adjust your camera all the time. You could of course change the setting every time, but it's much easier to just twist the dial to C1, C2 or C3 and then you are ready to start right away. So let's have a look how we can set them up. First we have a look at the settings in the menu. To do this you have to go into the setup section. This is the yellow chapter with the wrench icon. On page 5 you see the second option, Custom Shooting Mode C1, C3. Here you can register the settings that the camera has at the moment to one of your custom shooting modes. The next option is to clear the settings of a custom mode. The third option of this menu, here you can turn off auto update settings on or off. This means that if you are in one of the shooting modes and you make an adjustments to, let's say, the white balance, this will be updated. So when you turn the camera off and on, the new white balance is still in there. If you have this option disabled, then the white balance goes back to its original setting. I like to use the auto update setting because when you make an adjustment to, let's say, the white balance, and for some reason you have to turn the camera off to change the SD card or to save battery life, then the white balance is still on the new setting you just put in there. In this video I will set up my modes for the following situations. C1 I will set to studio portrait photography, C2 I will set to wildlife photography, and C3 I will set to time-lapse photography. So let's start with C1. First I set the camera in the manual mode. Second I go into the red shooting mode to page 3. Here I will select my white balance. I set this to flashlight because my portrait photography I will do with flashlights. My picture style I will set to portrait. On the 6th page I will set the shutter mode to mechanical mode. Then I go into the pink AF menu to page number 1. I will set the automatic function operation to one-shot autofocus. The AF mode I will set to face tracking. The subject to detect I will set to people. And the eye detection I will set to enable. Now I go into the yellow setup menu to page 5. I go to the custom shooting mode C1, C3 option and go to register settings. Here I will choose custom shooting mode C1. Register camera settings to custom shooting mode C1? Yes, of course, that's why we're here, and then we select OK. So if you now set the camera dial to C1, you will see that the settings are saved to this mode. I forgot that I also want to have my ISO at 100, So when I make this adjustment in this mode, you will see that when I switch in and out of this mode, the new ISO is at 100. This is because in the menu I selected to auto update settings to enable. So let's now set up C2 shooting mode for wildlife photography. So first set the camera again in the manual mode. We go into the red shoot menu to page number 3. I will set the white balance to cloudy. I will set the picture style to standard. And on page number 6 I will set the shutter mode to electronic, because I don't want to make any noise while taking wildlife pictures. Then I go into the pink autofocus menu to page number 1. I set the AF operations to servo. My AF mode I leave at face detection, but I set the subject to detect to animals. And the eye detection I leave at enable. Then I go to the orange CFN menu to page number 3 and select Customize buttons. Here I set the shutter button half pressed to metering start. I set the AF on button to eye detection AF. And the star button to EA lock button metering and AF start. And the multi-controller to direct AF point selection. I do this so with my thumb I can select where the box is going, and then I use the AF button to focus. If you want to know more about back button autofocus, Jan Wegner, he's a bird photographer. He has a really nice video about this, and you will see the link in my description for this. So all the settings are now correct. I go to the yellow setup menu to page 5 again and register the settings to the second custom setting mode. So to double check, I put the dial to C2 again and see if my new settings are here. And they are. I switch to C1, you see my previous settings, and at C2 are my wildlife photography settings. So let's set up C3 for time-lapse photography. First, set the camera in manual mode again. I leave the white balance at cloudy, and then I go to page 6 of the red shoot menu again. I first set the shutter mode to mechanical, otherwise the interval timer option won't work. Don't ask me why this is. If I use an external shutter remote, this is no problem, but somehow in camera you have to use the mechanical mode. Then I go into the interval timer option on the same page and set this to enable. I select the info detail settings and put my time on 4 seconds. This means it will take a picture every 4 seconds. And the number of shots I will leave at 00. This means it will take unlimited number of shots. Why the number of shots is maximum 99 is a riddle to me, because a time lapse of 4 seconds is a bit short if you ask me. It would be very nice if Canon would make this a 3-digit option, but somehow it's probably not that easy. Now select OK. The focus I would like to keep the traditional shutter button. So I go into the orange menu on page 3 and select the option Customize button. And set the shutter button to metering and AF start. I always like to take my time-lapse pictures with a shutter speed of 1 second and an f-stop of 9 to keep everything in focus. So to set this, I go out of the menu and set my shutter speed and f-stop in the normal way. Then I go back into the menu to the yellow setup page and register these settings to custom shooting mode C3 and select OK again. You probably get the hang of it now. To check it, I put my dial on C3 again and you will see all my settings are here. And when I take a picture, the interval timer will start with the sequence. So this is how I set up my custom shooting mode function buttons. If you have any questions or remarks, leave them in the comments below. If you like this video and it helped you a little bit, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, follow my channel and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.